contenders would love to join a list of wonderful greats here who've all become Crucible champions, and I'm delighted to say that we have many of them here this evening. You will give them a massive welcome as we introduce them one by one. And we start with a 6 times world champion who won the last of those 6 titles. It is Ray Reardon, a Crucible winner here, 1978.
Next, a legend who won the title at his first attempt and continues to shape the state of snooker today. It's Terry Griffiths!
Now, this gentleman took the trophy back home to Canada in 1980 and took the sport to the max a few years later. The first non-British winner of the Crucible, the grinder, Cliff Thorburn.
Following Cliff, you may remember him, the king of the 80s, a master of his craft, a 6-time champion of the world, Steve Davis.
And next, he won the most famous final of them all. He won the hearts of 18.5 million people glued to this final frame decider past midnight. The 1985 champion, Dennis Taylor.
Now he is the pride of Yorkshire at 150 to 1. He shook the world in 1986. It's Joe Johnson.
Will his magnificent 7 world titles from the 1990s ever be beaten? It's the standard they all still aspire to. Human Supreme, Stephen Hendry.
Next to blue, who mastered the green, one of the game's most popular champions of all time. It's John Barrett.
We celebrate 40 years of the Crucible. Well, can it really be 20 years since this man took the trophy home to Dublin? A 3-time finalist, the 97 champ, Ken Doherty.
Ladies and gentlemen, a 4-time Crucible champion, and he's not done yet, John Higgins! Next, 5 world titles, maximums coming out of his ears, and packed houses wherever in the world he plays. There's only one, Ronnie O'Sullivan!
Next, he's been in 3 finals, but 2002 was the year of snooker's Iron Man. He's back for a 24 campaign, the amazing Peter Ebdon.
Our parade of champions continues with a man who became only the 2nd qualifier to lift the Crucible title, the 2005 champion, Sean Murphy.
Another 3-time finalist, a Scot who got his reward in 2006 in the latest finish ever at nearly 1 a.m. It was worth the wait for Graham Dott.
Snooker is a truly global sport, and in 2010 this man took the title down under. Crucible raised the win for Neil Robertson.
And after 20 years of trying, at the age of 38, this man became the oldest champion since Ray Reardon. He won millions of new admirers on the way in 2015. Stuart Bingham.
Well, to complete Hazel, the most breathtaking of processions. I don't know about you, but that is one of the most fun 4 minutes of my entire career. Wow!
Goosebumps, goosebumps.
Real goosebumps.
Yeah.
What a moment. But there is one man missing, and I think he's one of the greatest students of the game. I always love talking to him. He lives and breathes it, and of course, the reigning king of the Crucible. It's Mark Selby!
Whoa. First of all, I think, Mark, on behalf of everybody in the room and everybody watching around the world tonight, what an amazing parade, and it must be an amazing sensation to be a part of this great history of this event in this venue.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a fantastic tournament. It doesn't matter whether you've been here one time or you've been here 10 times. You still get goosebumps the day before, leading up to the tournament. And it's always been a special occasion for me, the first day before the tournament starts, but this has been extra special this day.
It has, and this is your second defence, and this time you come unburdened with that Crucible curse. Is it a little more relaxing, the build-up, consequently?
At least I know what I'm going into this time. Winning it for the first time, trying to defend it, that Crucible curse, obviously it's there for a reason, it's history and it's still not been done. So coming back this time to defend it, I think it's probably going to be even harder. I think this year is probably the most open the tournament's ever been. A lot of players playing well, so it's going to be a great tournament. Well,
you're going for a third title in 4 years. You're getting the hang of this now, but generally speaking, what is the toughest part of handling 17 days here to try and win this trophy?
I think just physically and mentally, it's just so gruelling. I mean, not only do you have to go out there and play fantastic snooker, but I think mentally you get towards the semi-final stage and you think like you're right at the back end of the tournament, but you're only halfway through. You've still got another first to 17 and a first to 18, so mentally it takes it out of you, and at the end of the 2 weeks, whoever's strongest mentally, more times than not, seems to be champion.
Well, you know what you're up against. You've got a certain Fergal O'Brien who took 2 hours and 3 minutes in a final frame decided you're going to have to scrape him off the table tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's funny because I've already walked in my dressing room and apparently he's put a present of a new pair of shoes in there for me already, so I'm looking forward to that. But I mean, no, Fergal's a great guy, great competitor, one of the toughest players to beat on the tour, so I'm looking forward to it.
We're looking forward to seeing the match. We're looking forward to seeing you defend your title once again. Mark, thank you very much. Colin, defending champion.
I think we've made a bit of a mistake, haven't we? Because we started at the end when we've got over an hour to do 40 years. So let's go right back to 1977. I was born that year. That was the worst thing that happened. But just having a little think, Jimmy Carter, he was elected president of the United States. Sadly, Elvis passed away. What can you remember from 1970?
Well,
Sorry to put you in the spot.
I was just a toddler, obviously. But Virginia Wade winning Wimbledon, that was the same year as well, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Queen's Silver Jubilee. And, of course, on that list was right here, right where we were standing, a man called Spencer lifted the first ever Crucible title. Let's take you all the way back to the start.
Spencer takes the world crown for the third time.
The 1978 World Professional Snooker Champion, Lee Williams.
A great performance by a very cool and calculated snooker star.
Champion of the world, Mr. Cliff Thorburn.
World Snooker Champion for 1982 is Alex Hurricane Higgins.
here is the 1979 champion, Terry Griffiths. Terry, that was the first World Championship you ever entered, and you won it. In fact, it was only the second professional event you'd ever entered, and you won that as well. So in terms of your early impact, why were you able to make such a positive impact so early in your career?
Well, I was 31 years of age. I wasn't a 17-year-old coming to the Crucible, you know, and I had to go through the qualifying system. But looking back on it, I mean, I think I had a little bit of things going for me. Most of the players I played were heavy favourites to beat me. And to be honest, I was just glad to be here. It didn't matter to me. I felt so good.
You beat Dennis in the final, but it was Steady Eddie that you beat at nearing 1 o'clock in the morning. And the late, great David Vine came out to interview you. You came out with one of the classic lines. Just deliver it for us again.
I'm in the final now, you know.
That was the one. That was the one, absolutely. One of my favourite lines from history. You know, we saw in that VT that your dad told you that life is all about collecting precious memories. How many precious memories do you have from this place that you will always carry with you?
Well, too many to talk about, really. I've been here, I've won every round in this place, and I've lost in every round in this place, and I just love the place. I've been here commentating, coaching. I'm still coaching and enjoying every minute of it. I just feel, looking around here with all the great champions here, I was definitely the best one.
I can't argue with that. Congratulations, lovely to see you. Colin?
Wonderful. And, I mean, this is absolutely perfect, because anytime you talk to Terry and players that are that era, you realise that they weren't just snooker players. They were giants of the street. They were legends of the playground. Boy, were their characters, or at least that's the impression. Ladies and gentlemen, Willie Thorne and John Virgo. John, a great place to start, because, boy, you know, what if he could be here with us today? How important is Alex Higgins to this history?
Well, I've only ever sat in the arena once to watch a match, and I was sat in the players' balcony over there in the semi-final when he made that amazing clearance against Jimmy, you know, and that says all about the Crucible and the magic of Alex Higgins, you know. I really think he added that little bit of stardust to the game, you know. And I was also lucky enough to be in the commentary box when Ronnie made his 147 in 5 minutes, 20 seconds. So if only those two memories go out for the rest of my life, that'll be enough.
Unbelievable. And Willie, your faces are as familiar now. I mean, as I said, you were household names in our playground. And even today, it says a lot about how we connect to snooker players, that I would say in any British street, Willie, you're as recognisable as David Beckham.
That's the problem with... that's the problem being fat and bold, I'm afraid, but there we are. But I just like to remember some of the players that are no longer with us. You've mentioned Alex Higgins there, Eddie Charlton years ago, Werbeneck, and the great Paul Hunter, who would have said he would have won multiple World Championships. I think it's... so many players that have graced this stage, and when I use the word grace, I'm sure you'd agree with me, John. I mean, to play here at the Crucible is a lifelong ambition for every snooker player, and loads of them will never play here. But it's still to these days, when I'm coming down the Parkway, some 16, 17 years since I played here, the hairs on the back of my neck, not on the back of my head, but on the back of my neck stand up. It's fabulous venue. Fabulous.
The key word is family. You know, you travel the world together. You get to know each other as much as you would a brother, a sister, a mother, a daughter. But the laughters and the jokes back then, it must have stopped, John, behind closed doors when you were in opposite dressing rooms.
Well, it did, but I think what you got to remember in those early days, there was only 1 or 2 tournaments a year, so basically a lot of time was spent at the bar telling stories, particularly like John Pullman and Rex Williams and people like that. So there was that camaraderie, there was that bit of fun. Now it's a very serious game, obviously. The more money, the more serious it gets. But in those early days, I always remember coming and sitting with Patsy Fagan, and there was nobody here in the morning session. We'd never had a 2-table situation. Now you can't buy a ticket for love nor money, so... It's amazing how this place has just grown and grown in the 40 years. And, yeah, it's just great to be here on the 40th anniversary.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for having a chat with us, Hazel. We've just got so many superstars to talk to
We
this
sure
evening.
have, and it's a real thrill. And in fact, for Colin and me and for broadcasters who work on this great championship, it's a real thrill every year to be here, every spring, as part of this amazing sporting community. And that indeed is what it is. It's also a bit of an endurance test. I don't mind telling you that we're all slightly bonkers and slightly snooker loopy by the end of it, but broadcasters have been up for this challenge since 1977.
A very good evening. Through these curtains here behind me is Crucible's Theatre, so aptly named.
Willie Galore strikes again. Oh, I say.
You thought I was boring, didn't you?
I don't believe that.
I'm a lumberjack and I'm all right. I work all day and I sing all night.
We're glad you stayed with us. 17 days, and perhaps we'll do it again sometime.
But the black and white rag is still beyond me, I'm afraid. However, now a major part of the broadcasting team is a man who has a wonderful wit and charm and a very interesting personality, which is strange because nobody thought he had one at all in the 1980s. But he's a 6-time winner of this event and, in fact, starred in 7 finals on the trot. He also learned the hard way that you really can't win them all.
He's breathing heavily as he comes down to this final pink. And that's it. The World Snooker Champion, 1981, Steve Davis.
I'd like to thank all the people from Romford and from Plumstead Cong Working Men's Club and everybody else all over the place. Most of all, I'd like to thank my mum and my dad.
It's all over. Steve Davis then continues his tapestry of titles by becoming World Snooker Champion of 1983.
So now I was a multiple winner of the World Championship, and I'd started to mature as a player, felt more comfortable at the match table than I had done even in 81, and I was starting to look like I was the dominant force completely within the game.
And great performance then by Steve Davis to win the World Snooker Championship 1984.
I remember feeling so at home, so comfortable and relaxed, playing so well here, thinking, well, this is the best it's ever going to get.
No.
He's done it.
I don't have any regrets about the loss. It was part of snooker history. To think that nearly a third of the population were tuned in to watch us play a game of snooker, where only I don't know, 13 years previously, Alex Higgins had won the World Championship in '72 in a working men's club. The game had come so far, and it just captured the imagination of the public and moved it on another notch.
He won it again in '83 and '84, but he's lost it the past 2 years.
Joe Johnson, the defending champion, is the first to come out and congratulate Steve Davis. It's all over for the 5th time. Steve Davis becomes world champion.
I do remember going into the '89 final, which was the last one I ever lifted. But as the tournament unfolded, I really did start to play some decent stuff, and it was my best win.
John Parrott concedes the title of World Snooker Champion 1989, and a hat-trick goes to the fabulous Steve Davis.
We'll see you again next year here at the Crucible for another World Championships, and it certainly is a fantastic place to come. And I, for one, look forward to coming back every year regardless of the result. Thank you.
And a rapturous ovation for Steve Davis. And Steve, are there still times that you think you're more famous, not for the 6 victories, but for the 2 defeats to Dennis and Joe?
Well, certainly the '85 final was that moment in snooker's history back then that everybody remembered being involved in, and I still look at it fondly. I know it's hard to believe. Now it's one of my major moments in my life, you know. And of course, the game changed quite a lot in many ways, and looking back to the '70s, so many great characters in the game, and most people don't know I was brought in to try and redress the balance. And from then on in, my life changed. I had to play the part, obviously.
So you really weren't as boring as everybody thought?
No, I had to sort of suffer it. You know, there'd be Jimmy Whirlwind White, Alex Hurricane Higgins in a bar, and there'd be people sniggering saying, "There's Steve, no nickname Davis." It was tough to take, but I just to go with the flow. It was in the contract.
Now, I'm half expecting Barry Hearn to come running on to embrace you at any minute, but which of those 6 victories was the sweetest for you?
You can't beat the first World Championship against Doug Mountjoy, one of the great players of the '70s, and I was supposed to be favourite, and perhaps the pressures of being a favourite are hard to deal with, but I got it over the line. Then regaining, and then obviously Dennis, and then my last was the sweetest in one respect because I totally ruined the final. There was no last session, and I did my job as best I could, and sadly beat my fellow co-commentator and mate John Parrott. I don't even want to look at him now. But
he's just left the room. It's okay.
Yeah. But that was one of my proudest moments in another way. But they're all, as we've all said, playing here is the pinnacle. It's the holy grail. So the fact we've even played here is just marvellous.
You know, I think if we had £1, or you had £1 for every time you've been mentioned at the 1985 final, you would be even richer than you are now, actually. But you're going to have to steal yourself by mentioning it one more time. Colin?
I know, I don't want to really do this, but Dennis is here, and we all know the big moment that we have to talk about. Dennis, tell me about when you get beat up in the final in 1979.
Yeah, that was more important than that one against Steve, really, yeah. No, that year it looked like I was going to win it. I'd beat the great Ray Reardon, who's here, was 6 times world champion. I'd beaten Steve. I played Terry in the final, led him 15-13, and he totally outplayed me on the final day. So I had to wait another 6 years to try and realise my dream and ambition to become world champion, and to do it against Steve was incredible.
And of course, there's also the homecoming for all of these champions. It means so much to the country, and it also means so much to the town. And I mean, when you did return home with that title in 1985, it was phenomenal. It was scenes we'd never really seen before back in our home country.
Yeah, I'd been away from home quite a while. I left when I was 17, and to see the reception I got there, it was just incredible. It was a bit like Ken when he won his title and went back to Dublin. But to go back to it was only a small town, and to have so many people in the place. I mean, they did try to get the Pope mobile. Can you believe that? and I finished up on the back of a Range Rover or a Land Rover.
Yeah.
But that was good enough for me. It was brilliant, yeah.
I wanted to recreate, of course, the famous black. It was the first time you were ever ahead in the 85 Black Ball final, but you insisted we recreated the shot that Steve Davis missed. So I'll leave it in your hands. Come on.
Well, I think you've got it slightly wrong, Steve. It's not quite right, that. I think the white was probably a bit nearer the pocket, and the black was about there. And I mean, how did you miss that?
Roughly that.
Where did you think they were?
About there, yeah.
About there. Now, Steve said the black was there and the white was here. I'd never pop this. It was something like that.
Yeah. You might have better reach it.
You might not reach it.
Oh, look at that.
Came the shout from the crowd. And you missed!
Well played, Dennis. Well played, Dennis. And once again, great sportsmanship from Steve Davis, because you've had to relive that a lot of times, as indeed has Barry Hearn. This man is your client, was your client at the time. What did you say to him in the aftermath? Because you must have known at the time, very disappointing, but the bigger picture must surely have been evident to you then, was it?
And still my client now, I want
Indeed.
to tell you, after 41 years old. I couldn't watch. I was standing behind the back. There was a curtain in those days. I had a driver called Robbo. A lot of people in the audience will know Robbo. And I just turned around and said, "Tell me he's got it." And I heard the click and heard the crowd go, "Oh," and I thought, I don't believe it. That ginger muppet, you can't... And then I seem to remember, and I'm not advocating this as a policy for losers, but we got extremely drunk.
It's nice to have a mate in your corner. And obviously, afterwards, for the week after, back in Romford, I was inconsolable. But fortunately, having a mate like Bo was great, because he signed Dennis up the following week.
This is Barry for you, absolutely. But now you're the El Supremo of the sport, and things are changing. Things are going very well, and you're the man who brings us news. And I believe you have news to bring us this evening, Barry.
Well, I couldn't think of a stage that was more appropriate, bearing in mind the history that's in this room, to announce World Snooker's decision today to grant 2 invitational tour cards for the next 2 years to 2 players, multiple ranking winners in their own right, but great ambassadors for the sport of snooker. So we welcome back for the next 2 years, as a minimum, Jimmy White and Ken Doherty.
Well, a more popular decision I don't think you could have this evening. Barry, Steve, thank you very much. Well, from the 80s, things were changing, Colin.
Absolutely. Like with so many sports, you think it's reached its absolute peak, and then along comes somebody else who takes it to the next level. And if the 80s belonged to Davis, the 90s belonged to Hendry.
I remember, obviously, I turned professional at 16, thinking, wow, imagine we got to play at the Crucible. It meant snooker to it. It was snooker for me. The first one is obviously special. It's your ambition to be world champion. That was my ambition.
Stephen Hendry beaten Jimmy White by 18 frames to 12 to become the youngest ever champion.
I won the world championship when I was 21. So that was obviously special, and obviously to still the youngest to this day.
World champion for the second time.
The 1993 Embassy World Champion.
There was a time in the 90s, obviously, where I felt totally invincible. I mean, almost taking it for granted, winning the Crucible. But I just expected to win.
Stephen Hendry has proved once again that he's the best player in the world.
I played snooker very aggressively, fearlessly. I would like to think that I changed the way snooker was played.
For the 5th time and a record 4 times consecutively. Stephen Hendry becomes the Embassy World Snooker Champion for the 6th time.
Ray Reardon, 6 times world champion in the 70s. Steve Davis, 6 times in the 80s. But it's a magnificent 7 times for Stephen Hendry in the 90s.
To win the 7th world title, obviously to break the records, that was just incredible. And even now when I go there, obviously working for the BBC instead of playing, I still think, God, I'd much rather be out there with a cue in my hand than a microphone.
I could chat to you for hours. I always love chatting to you, but I want to take you right back to a young teenager, the youngest ever in here. And that year and the next year was very much a battle with Willie Thorne.
Yeah. My first appearance here was playing Willie Thorne. My only aim was not to get embarrassed, not to beat 10-0, 10-1, first time at the Crucible. But yeah, I managed to run him pretty close, 10-8, and I got that lovely applause that he gave me on the way out. That was lovely, wasn't it? But it was just, it was my ambition to play here.
Yeah. Take me to what... I want to talk about the relationship with this fantastic crowd, because there's no vitriol towards players, but we do migrate to the underdog. And when you are unflappable and you're invincible, automatically we all migrate to the other camp. On top of that, when you're winning title after title after title, you add the other thing to the fact the guy was Jimmy White. Did that motivate you?
Well, when you come through the curtains, it's an amazing place to walk into. It's like a cauldron, and when there's booze, it's, it can affect you any way, but if you use it as a strength, as I did, it can make you play even better. I knew that in here that I maybe got half a balcony. Jimmy took 4 or 5 of them with his guests. I had maybe half of one, and they were supporting me. But as you say, about 96%, 97% of the rest were for Jimmy. So you've got to use that as motivation.
Your main enemy was not man. It was getting up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I mean, that nearly scuppered the amount of titles you have.
Yeah, you know, your insurance company, you're not allowed to do dangerous sports like skiing and all these things. And I broke my arm or fractured my elbow getting up to go to the toilet in the middle of the night.
Excellent, love it. And this man, we talk about that era of the players in the 70s and 80s, but just confirm you did have your own spitting image puppet.
Yep, yes. Yeah, that was very nice. I like that.
And Hazel, very complimentary it was too. And I know you're going to meet a man who, per soul, has to spend 17 days locked in a room with me.
Oh, yes. Mind you, there are worse to be spending in a room with you, Colin, I must say. 4 finals, Stephen and Jimmy played together. And, of course, Jimmy graced 6 finals in all and came home empty-handed after each one. He remains one of the best-loved figures in British sport ever. So, ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome the People's Champion, the Whirlwind, Jimmy White.
Thank you.
Nice touch, Jimmy. Jimmy walking towards Barry with a handful of tenors there, but no need.
You don't take tenors.
Jimmy, bittersweet memories here for you. Would that be fair to say?
Well, yeah, for me, playing Steve Davis, he was the hardest player to beat, and I think most of the players at Steve's top game. For me, he was such a good long potter and a good positional player, and I battled with him for 12 years or something in the amateur game and the professional. And then Stephen Hendry come along and he was potting them off the lampshades. We just didn't know what to do. But, You know, I haven't won the World Championships, but I'm not finished yet. This place... This is such a great place for snooker, and, you know, I've seen snooker go from, you know, the top in the 80s, sort of a small decline now, but in the 90s, but now it's in the best shape ever. And to be a young professional now, it's the greatest game to be in.
I take it you will be taking up the option of this wild card. Tell us yes.
I don't know, I have to have a word. No, yes, definitely. No, I'll definitely be playing for the next couple of years, yeah.
That's fantastic, Jimmy, because I know that you were still trying to make it here. You were beaten in qualifying, and that actually knocked you off the tour. But what for you is the love of the game? Why do you still play it all these years?
Because I can, you know, occasionally I still get it together and I can beat anybody, you know. So while I've still got that game, you know, I keep trying. I love practicing. I love doing exhibitions, and the game still excites me.
And it's great to see you in it. We'll see you next season. No Q school for Jimmy White. Well played, Colin.
Well, so often great sporting moments are accompanied by great sporting commentary, and we remember them forever. They think it's all over. It is now. Where were the Germans? Frankly, who cared? And when you look through the annals of Crucible commentary over 4 decades, there's one line that really jumps out to me. Ah, good luck, mate.
I do remember having a dream a couple of weeks beforehand that I would make a 147 in the World Championship.
Well, that's one way of getting them, I suppose, and staying on the black as well.
When I did have the opportunity to shoot the first black ball, I mean, the balls were actually spread pretty good.
These reds are now spread open beautifully.
I was sick, actually. I didn't feel all that great, and I don't know what I was running on, but anyways, I managed to keep it going.
At a stage like this with just one red left, he stops, blows his nose, and says, let's have a break. And if he can take this red and the black, the colours will be on their spots.
So I was thinking positive.
Keep rolling. They have actually stopped playing on the other table.
Well, now this is the real shot to get on the yellow. He hasn't come quite far enough. He's left himself a tough shot, but that's 15 reds and 15 blacks that he's taken now.
When I got to the black at the very end, I felt comfortable enough to say to myself that I wanted to pot the black and not even have the black ball touch the sides of the pocket.
Oh, good luck, mate.
Oh, wonderful! That is really, truly wonderful.
It was a magic moment, a very defining moment for me.
Wonderful memories, Cliff, wonderful memories. And you know, to think it all started with a fluke. The commentary team of Rex Williams and Jack Carnham didn't actually start talking about a maximum for fear of jinxing it until you'd potted the 8th red. At what point did you think this was on?
Probably after the first 3 or 4 reds, because the balls were spread beautifully. And like I said, I had a dream about 2 weeks before that, and the dream was that I actually fluked the first, the first black ball actually. And right, but anyways, the cue ball hit the black, and then it hit the end cushion, right, and then it came and landed right in the middle of all the reds and spread them all out like that. And it was just basically the same kind of thing. So in fact, I had done it before.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
But with 1 red left, ladies and gentlemen, you had the presence of mind and the discipline to stop, take a breath, blow your nose, and go back to it. How on earth did you do that?
Well, I didn't want to sort of drop to my knees with stuff all over my face, you know. I didn't think it would look. No, it's just, it was bothering me, so I had to stop. And of course, I stopped and I walked back to the table and I saw Terry having his tea and cookies there, so that was reassuring for me.
But the key ball thereafter was the yellow, and we've set it up. Have we got it in the right place here, Cliff? Would you like to have another attempt at this? Because this was eminently missable, particularly in the circumstances, was it not? Because
sorry, Steve, but I'd rather have had your shot.
Well, bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that no televised 147 had been achieved. Steve Davis had made one, but it was to win a car, and I think there'd been a strike at the time, Steve, so it actually wasn't televised, was it? But this was a very big moment for Cliff.
Oh, this is just, thanks whoever thought this up. This is great. This is get even time for somebody. Like, I know it is, but my golf is good at the moment, okay. But anyways, why I shot it this way is because of, if I was to run it through, I would end up on the cushion there. And then I thought, well, I could play, and play it with left-hand side here. And then, but this, I'm not so sure about this one here. Okay. No, but the side, you see, comes out like, Ronnie, you know what to do. So then, okay, okay.
So if you did it at the time.
So then I didn't do it, okay, right? No, but, it's important that I explain this.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I get you.
Or else I'll start the break from the very beginning. That's up to you. Okay, right. Or else I play it with right-hand side. And this is, holy smokes. Not a boost. But you see, right, this is the reason why I didn't play it one of these three ways.
Precisely.
Okay? Because I thought about that. You know how I think.
But Cliff,
sorry?
you did it when it counted, and that's all that counted. And I realised, he's going to have another go at it. There's no stopping him, actually, is there now?
So this is the shot,
Third
right?
time lucky.
And I very seldom played it with stun run through. It's just I've got a short backswing. It's a long, sorry. And this is, oh, gee, what the? No, seriously. What do you got these things hanging out there? Look at that. Okay. Yeah. Yellow ball. This is the last shot.
Thank you very much. That's it, Mr. Standard. Thank you. All right. Well, there already has been a 147 here in Sheffield this week. Gary Wilson has achieved that and did it in qualifying tournament. In fact, it was one of 8 centuries that you made, Gary, a second career maximum for you. Congratulations. You're a debutant. What do you make of the prospect of playing here?
It's amazing. I've been here to watch a few times, and it's great just even spectating, but to be here and actually play for the first time is absolutely unbelievable.
Tell me a little bit about being here the first time.
I was actually here when I was 9 years old in '95, and I managed to come out into the arena when they used to have the globes by the seats and got a few photos taken with as if the globe was on top of my head kind of thing. And it was just a brilliant experience just to come and see everything backstage. And I remember meeting the players and things in the press room, and it was just unbelievable from that age, yeah.
And your reward is a match against Ronnie O'Sullivan. That's a reward.
Yeah, it is. It's obviously one of the best draws, so I'm absolutely delighted and just going to go out there, give it my best and just enjoy the whole experience.
We wish you the very best of luck. Gary Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Many people would say, why Sheffield? Why the Crucible? Well, it all started in 1976. Mike Waterson was a sports promoter who was looking after this great championship. He'd taken it on the road for a few years, but he was looking for a permanent home. And his wife, Carol, came here to the Crucible to watch a theatre production. She went home that evening. She said, I think I've found your venue. And Carol, you were absolutely right. 40 years later, Sheffield is Snooker City.
Sheffield, former Steel City to boom town. In the past 40 years, it has survived the demise of its core industries to become one of the most fashionable and economically attractive regions of the country. Both Boeing and luxury car maker McLaren have recently announced plans to open high-tech manufacturing plants here. Sheffield is enjoying a renaissance.
What I think we need to do now is to show how this great city, this great region has changed, has learnt from the past, but has took those values and put them into a modern setting. No, you can never deny your past, but you can learn from it, and I believe Sheffield has learned from that past.
By April 1976, the city was making a bitter passage to a post-industrial future. While across the Pennines, the Snooker World Championship also faced an uncertain future. Amid criticism, the championship that year was played in both Manchester and Middlesbrough. The sport was looking for a place to call home. It found a welcome in South Yorkshire.
It was always, I think, extremely friendly city, but it was a very industrial city. It was mainly built around the industry of the steelworks, but also around the neighbourhoods, the mining industry as well.
Against this backdrop, Sheffield Council had decided to construct a controversial new theatre. The Crucible opened in 1971. 6 years later, it entered a televised marriage with snooker.
Going into a theatre was obviously quite, a revolutionary thing to do. I think one thing that sticks in my mind was the amount of beer that was drank. I understand at that time they drank in one night the allocation for a fortnight.
And the world champion 1977, John Spencer.
Everyone knows it's been here for 40 years. The dates have never changed, and that's a sort of remarkable achievement. It's vital, I think, not only for the business of the theatre, but it's also vital for the business of the city as well.
It puts Sheffield right on the world stage, and of course it's good for the economy, the local economy, around £5 million plus a year. I think it actually brings in tourists that come in not necessarily just to see the snooker, because it's a great place to be during that particular period. And of course, it brings those people back.
It's estimated that snooker has brought around £70 million to Sheffield, which has fought off other cities bidding to host the World Championship. Snooker found its spiritual home and helped Sheffield become a leading centre for sport and a city renewed.
In 1977, it was, like working men's clubs around the city, in the suburbs and in the neighbourhoods. And now we have a vibrant bars and restaurants city centre.
It was a working class sport, and one that I think was really embraced, as far as Sheffield was concerned, for the World Snooker Championships. And there's no doubt that, in the preceding 40 years, it has become the world of snooker. It is the home of snooker.
Well, Julie Dore's the leader of Sheffield Council. And Julie, we might be fixated as BBC and Eurosport on what happens in the tables, but you just need to walk through this city over a period of 3 weeks and see what it actually means to the entire city of Sheffield.
Oh, of course it does, and there's a real buzz about the place, of course. And I've also said that Sheffield is a great city, but also for the people in it. Sheffield people are very proud people, and we need to feel really proud of our city, and I think World Snooker brings that pride to Sheffield. So even for people that don't actually come to see the snooker during that period, they really feel part of it because they're proud to be here and they're proud to be a Sheffielder.
I mean, I'm not going to take a side. We know we've got two great football teams in this city. We've also got, of course, in the modern era, we see it as a centre of sporting excellence. I mean, actually, Yorkshire as a county can win more Olympic gold medals than most countries in the planet. But how important was the Crucible at the beginning of that, of Sheffield being seen globally as a sporting city?
Sheffield's always been seen as a steel city. It's the city of steel. But also, it's now known as the city of sport. It's absolutely the city of sport. And as you say, we have two great football teams, and hopefully, very shortly, one will be going up into the Premiership and one into the Championship. But Sheffield, with gold medalists, Jessica Ennis, etc. And you're absolutely right about Yorkshire, isn't it? It's got won the most gold medals. And as I say, Sheffielders are very proud, and we're very proud of the heritage, and sport is a real major part of that heritage for us. And snooker, being here for 40 years, is just fabulous for the city. And again, I hope that we look forward to another 40 years of it.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Julie. I'm going to send you about 10 yards over that way, because Hazel, 40 years
It sounds good, but I tell you what, 50 has a beautiful ring to it.
Sure does, yeah. Ruby anniversary this time. A golden anniversary. Barry, Julie, would you like to make formal the enduring commitment between the sport and the city? Because these lovely people are about to sign a document which will keep this great championship here at the Crucible and in the city for another 10 years at the very least, till 2027. And they are putting pen to paper on what is now a guaranteed 50 years of history here at the Crucible for World Snooker. Congratulations. Here's to the next 10 and beyond.
Another decade of champions to be added to what we've seen tonight, and to have them all in this room tonight, so many of them, is a list of absolute legends. And I know we talk to people who've won it 7 times and 6 times and 5 times and 4 times, but the beauty of the World Championship is you only need to win it once.
A former bus conductor and insurance agent, now world-class professional snooker star. Dennis Taylor concedes. The world title for the first time going across the water to Canada.
But I'm sure you'll agree he's a great champion.
Yes, he's got, as they say in Canada, he's a grinder, but he grinds very hard, I promise you.
It's amazing, every player's ambition when they turn professional is to become world champion. It's just impossible to put into words how I felt after being a professional for 13 years to eventually have rolled that black in, and I think it said it all the way I reacted.
The crowd here at the Crucible are going mad for Bradford's Joe Johnson.
I showed no signs of ever threatening to win the title. My thoughts really was, I hope I don't get completely destroyed. I just didn't want to make a fool of myself.
To actually do it, and then having a father there as well, he came out into the venue and the manager was over the moon obviously, and good pals, and my wife was there, and a very special feeling. I mean, I'd like to have enjoyed it a little bit more, but you're so buzzed up at the time with winning and everything that you tend to forget about that part of it, but that was very special.
And Doherty thoroughly deserves this Embassy World Championship title.
You know, it still gives me goosebumps even talking about it, you know, because it wasn't only the magic of winning the trophy, it was the magic of taking it back to Ireland.
You are the Embassy Champion of the World 2002.
And a big rising star is born here.
Sean Murphy has beaten Matthew Stevens to win the Embassy World Championship.
You know, to win it, especially being, you know, the first Australian to be world champion and, you know, first overseas player since Cliff Baldwin won it. It's great to join those players, you know, in the history book.
It's a lap of honour. Enjoy every minute of it, Stuart. You deserve this world title that you've waited so long for.
Yeah, and our hero from 2 years ago joins us now, Stuart Bingham. As he said himself, winner, winner, chicken dinner. One of the great lines afterwards. You were the oldest first-time winner since Walter Donaldson in the 1940s. You were a tender 38 years of age. You've been in the game 20 years. What took you so long, Stuart?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think it's give everyone else a chance. But yeah, obviously on the road for, say, 20 years as a pro, it was long time coming. But I remember my first time here, I played Stephen Hendry in 2000, and I just felt there, I had the vibes of, I could maybe do this one day, and it took me 15 years more, but I got here eventually.
You did, and 15 years later, as you say, you came in here as a 50-1 shot. I just wonder if there was an inkling. You'd never been past the quarter-finals until that point. Was there an inkling? Did you get even a sense, a hint, that something might have been on that year, Stuart?
I did have, obviously, a fantastic year. I won 3 tournaments coming into this, so obviously the previous tournaments I got to a couple of semis, so I knew I was hitting the ball as good as anyone, and it clicked here for me.
Now, again, the Crucible curse struck, a first-time champion the following year. But as you come back in this time, you've just won another big event earlier in the season. Are you much more relaxed for that coming into the Crucible this time, Stuart?
Yeah, definitely. So, obviously, the Crucible curse, got me. Obviously a massive learning curve for me. It was a dream just to come here as defending champion.
OK, well, 13 men have won it twice. You're hoping to become the next. Good luck, Stuart. Thank you very much. Colin?
Well, I'm John Parrott and Ken Doherty with me. John, I just wonder, when you're regarded as a top player and year after year goes by and you don't win it, yours was the 8th time of asking, big drubbing in a final 2 years earlier, semi-final, next to the pockets shrink, does the pressure grow?
Yeah, obviously you hope that you're going to win it one day, and the final, what I'm pleased about more than anything when I look back, is that the final and the drubbing that got off Steve was still fully deserved. I mean, he was a far better player than me in the final, but I had to put that to the back of my mind. I got him in the semi-final 2 years later, so I'm coming out to the same venue, same table, everything. He's been beating me 18-3, and that's probably my finest achievement. He forgets, by the way, that I beat him 16-10 in that semi-final. No, that was the finest thing, and then obviously to beat Jimmy in the final. But you're always a little wary that you're never going to win it, but there's no venue like this. When you win here, it's very special.
Because you're standing in milk crates and playing snooker as boys in snooker halls, and then there you are, Ken, winning the world title. I just remember, when you think back to that year, it was Terry's last professional games, the quickest ever century from Ronnie O'Sullivan. But can you close your eyes and remember that moment when you won it, or do you have to watch it back on a tape?
Yeah, sometimes. I started on a biscuit tin. I stopped that after a few years, just recently. But I grew up watching the snooker, in the World Championship, watching it on Pop Black, and I always wanted to be here. When Dennis won it in '85 and Higgins won it in '82, they were inspirations for kids all over Ireland. And to win it and emulate what they did was just absolutely fantastic. Dreams, that's what dreams are made of.
And I'm assuming, in terms of dreams, obviously you being one of the biggest Everton fans, John, that it must have been brilliant to go back and parade the World Championship trophy around Goodison.
It would have been if they hadn't been away, Colin. So I was invited by Anfield to take the trophy to Anfield, and I paraded it round there, which some of my Everton fans have never forgiven me for. But no, they kindly said, look, this is for the people of Liverpool, and I'm very proud of the city that I come from. And I took it there that day, and they were absolutely fantastic. To go out in the middle of the pitch with the trophy. And it had been quiet that year on Merseyside. We hadn't won any trophies that year, so I was the only one to get one. So it was something I'll never, ever forget.
You always look back at the hometowns, and it wasn't just on the table. You contributed, certainly in Dublin, you had a positive effect too.
Yeah. 250,000 people lined the streets. I didn't realise I had such a big family, and just bringing the trophy back on an open top bus, it was just absolutely fantastic. And one funny thing happened when I got there into there was a big reception in the Lord Mayor's house, the Mansion House in Dublin, and the Chief Superintendent said to me, he said, something, Doherty? He says, between the hours of 7 and 10 on the final session of the final, we didn't have one call into the Central Police Station in Dublin, And he said to me, the girls on the switchboard were ringing the main switchboard, saying, is there something wrong with our phones? And the girls were saying, no, everybody's watching the snooker, why aren't you, And he said to me, he says, you should be on telly more often. He says, you make my job a hell of a lot easier. So I stopped crime in Dublin for 3 hours. It was fantastic.
Well, it's funny you should talk about crimes, actually, because when it comes to 40 years of the Crucible, most of the crimes in here have been fashion.
Dominic, what did you do? Well, the man who was always beautifully attired, particularly with those spats that you wore around the table, was Joe Johnson. Joe, you came in as 150 to 1 outsider. Take us through that fairy tale tournament, and what remains the clearest in your memory from that amazing run that year?
So I was only 150 to 1. Thought it'd be more than that. But yeah, it was. It's every player's dream, as everybody said. And nobody expects to win it, especially if you haven't won it before. If you've won it previously, then obviously it's in your mind and you know that you can do it. But as far as I was concerned, I just wanted to win a match here because I'd never won a match here. And it was incredible that I won a match and all of a sudden I felt part of the tournament, and that was the first time ever.
And of course you came back the following year and nearly won it again, but there was one piece of clothing that I want to talk to you about, and it was a T-shirt that you wore around the venue, because this was just after the Bradford fire disaster at the club, and you were a very proud man from Bradford. What did that T-shirt say, Joe?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, we needed some good news from Bradford, and when I won the World Championship and went back there, I had a civic reception, which was fantastic. But during the championship, I wore a shirt that said, well, it was a T-shirt that said, Bradford's bouncing back, and we really did bounce back that year.
You did indeed, and you have been a favourite son of your proud town ever since. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Johnson, thank you very much. Thank you, Joe. Well, 6 years after Joe won that title, 1992 was a year which would prove to be highly significant for snooker, because in that year, 3 of the Crucible's most decorated champions all turned professionals. They are the stars of the golden generation.
It's hard to believe that so many players seem to sort of hit form at the same time, and the standards were being pushed back ever further. But you know, Ronnie O'Sullivan, John Higgins, Stephen Hendry, Mark Williams, all in the mix at that time. Stephen sort of trying to hold on to his position, but these new kids on the block coming through, producing astonishing snooker in the 90s and into the early 2000s. And it's very rare that you get those types of players all coming at the same time.
Well, it's almost like a sort of golden era of talent. 3 of them are the 3 that you always be looking for in every tournament. I mean, the battles obviously they've had together have been fantastic.
Even though it wasn't considered to be the golden period of snooker, the 90s, the 80s sort of had that mantle. I think from the snooker fans' perspective, it was by far the most exciting time in the game.
And it wasn't nice because they stopped me winning a lot more of the major tournaments, and I'd be beaten in finals by them all. Very prodigious talents, different personalities, but once on the snooker table, they were, complete assassins.
Ronnie O'Sullivan has been the most amazing gift to snooker I think we've ever had. Just an astonishing character and an astonishing player, and probably the biggest genius we've ever seen on the snooker table.
To come back after a year out and win the title as he did, I just thought was extraordinary. I know the word genius is used a lot, but he is a genius on the snooker table. I think of all the players that Ronnie O'Sullivan, when I talk to Ronnie about certain players, he really has the utmost respect for John Higgins.
John Higgins took the level of snooker, match play snooker, to a level higher than perhaps I'd done, and the best all-rounder there's ever been in the game of snooker, and whether you'll ever see a player as good an all-rounder in the game again is arguable.
Just like a Steve Davis, basically. Every part of it, no department that had a weakness. Fabulous match player, tough to play against, safety brilliant, scored heavy, a work ethic, everything you'd want, and a brilliant temperament on top of that. Ronnie O'Sullivan's won 5. That's probably why John Higgins has only won 4.
He hated to lose, and that in itself was a motivation for John Higgins. And I remember when they first come through as youngsters, Steve Davis was quoted that someone asked him who did he think was the best, John Higgins or Ronnie O'Sullivan. He said, I think Ronnie O'Sullivan's got more talent, but if I had to have one or the other playing for my life, I'd pick John Higgins.
Mark Williams, I think, has been quite an astonishing competitor in the game of snooker. I wouldn't necessarily have thought that he was guaranteed to be a champion. When he first came onto the scene, he didn't necessarily look like he had all the attributes. But what he's got and what he had at that time was this fierce determination and a competitive instinct that I think you couldn't teach at all, and granite under pressure.
One of the best potters I've ever seen in my life. Has he underachieved? He's certainly not won as many as Ronnie and John, but different characters, and I think that's what added to it as well. You know, you've got Ronnie who can be up and down, you've got John Higgins with this great determination, you've got the laid-back Welshman, you know, who's just sauntering around the table, knocking the balls in.
But that temperament, above all else, I mean, you could be bombarded or barraged by breaks, never bothered him. He came back and played. A fabulous, fabulous player.
The record for ranking tournaments between all of them is just phenomenal, you know, and to do it year after year for so many years, and even now, you know, the three of them still at the top of the game, in the top 16 in the world after about, you know, 20 odd years as professional. It's quite an incredible career, and more often than not, they were at the business end of most tournaments.
No, you won't see that again. You won't see that again, because I think we're struggling probably to have younger players coming through in ones, let alone twos, and certainly not in threes. But you'll never get three like them again. No chance.
And we've got two men who between them have 11 world titles, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Ray Reardon. And I just wonder, gentlemen, you two worked together when you won the second of your titles, Ronnie, in 2004, very ably and abetted by this gentleman here, Ray. But when did you first become aware of the feats of Ray and those who've gone before in snooker? What age were you when you really dialed into the sport?
I suppose it was when I was watching Davis win in the 80s, you know. That's when my dad sat me down when I was 10. He says, like, if you want to be a champion, then look no further than Steve Davis. And that's when I started to look at records and who I wanted to be like. So, yeah, but then I don't think you really grasp it until you actually come to the Crucible and experience the atmosphere. And then you start looking at how many times the players have won it, and you see his name 4 or 5 times on the spin, and then Hendry 6 on the spin, Davis 5 on the spin. You think, wow, they're legends, you know. So you're just happy to be amongst them, you know.
And to work with this man, obviously, Ray, must have been a great thrill for you in 2004. And it must be a very different sport, a different kind of sport, because you and Terry and others, you were holding down different jobs at the same time, weren't you?
It was a pleasure. When I had a phone call from his dad said to me, he said, "What do you think of my son?" He said, "Do you think he should be winning more tournaments than he is?" I said, "Yes." But I said, "We don't want to have a triangular talk here." I said, "Get him to ring me," which he did do some months later. And when we met up, it was fantastic. He was in the practice room when I arrived here, and he put his hand out to me to shake hands, and I disregarded his hand, and I just gave him a hug like this. And that's how the relationship went, you know. Yeah.
And that...
My biggest idea was, I mean, he gave me 10 years to my life, actually. He made me 10 years younger. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. It was a privilege and a pleasure, but the trouble was, there's nothing I could teach him about potting balls. No one can pot balls better than this man. He had more control of the white than anybody I've ever seen. But the idea was, how could I get him to enjoy playing defensive? Because he didn't like it. He didn't like the defence. He's an attacking player. So in his life, he always wants to attack. And one day, he said to me, he said, "I want a little bit of practice on the defence." And we went into a defensive situation. People say to me, they said, "Well, you're a defensive player. Look, you don't win 6 world titles on the defence, that's for certain."
I like it, Ray. I like it. I think, Ronnie, you've had a kind of up and down relationship with the Crucible over the years, but I just wonder, as you're maturing into your 40s now, is the enjoyment factor higher coming back to the Crucible now?
Yeah, I was just sitting next to John, and John said, "Do you still get a buzz when you come out?" I said, "Yeah, I enjoy it more now than I did when I was younger, because I feel like I'm a bit more consistent." And I think 17 days here of up and down, it's a nightmare. Trust me, I've been there. But 17 days of this is fun, and you can enjoy it. So I'm probably enjoying it more than I ever have. John doesn't seem to enjoy it as much.
Well, I'll tell you what.
He was like, I know, you know, he preferred it when he was younger, but swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
It is. Well, this man won the last of his titles at age 45. You've still got 4 years to go to catch him in terms of that. But we'll throw it over to John. Let's get your impressions, Colin.
Absolutely, he can get his own back there. But the truth is, when we're sitting in the sofa doing the punditry, any chance Ronnie has to wax lyrical about you, he does it. And we've just watched the last piece of video where you've got so many greats of the game that are here tonight paying homage to your all-round game. I'm sure it's very humbling.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, Steve Davis, he was my hero growing up, but then obviously Stephen Hendry came along from Scotland, so he was a big hero for all the Scottish boys that we could try and emulate Stephen. And then, for then on, as you say, to come and play your heroes here at the best venue, it's an unbelievable feeling.
I mean, do you get more philosophical as you get older? Do you drive to the Crucible and think, well, what will be, or do you lust and crave that trophy as much as you did when you were a teenager?
I don't know, but I was sitting next to Ronnie there, and I says, "These pockets look really tight." So, I don't know what's going to happen over the weekend. But no, listen, you've came, and I've been so lucky. I've won it a few times, and it's a great feeling to come and win it. And you would love to try and play well again and see what happens. So,
any chance we could have a Higgins 147 at the Crucible, please?
Yeah, I'd love that. I mean, I don't think I've really ever been close. I know Ronnie said about 5, and same with Stephen and people like that, but there's so much pressure now, especially just playing here, just to win frames, never mind to make maximum. So you take your hat off to those players doing that.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Hazel, a golden generation, and they're not done yet.
They sure aren't. But the man they're all trying to beat, no matter which generation they're from, is the current world number 1, Mark Selby. And come what may over the next 2 weeks, Mark is going to end the season as world number 1 for a 6th time, and he's trying to pick up the trophy for a 3rd time in 4 years.
Well, Mark Selby I've known since he's been 14 years of age, and his improvement has been second to none. When I say this, and I mean it sincerely, Mark Selby for me was never going to be a top 16 player, because he used to cue this far away from the cue ball. When he got close, he improved 40 points overnight.
I think he's just very consistent. He's got an excellent B game. He's the best I've ever seen at winning ugly. So, you know, worse, other players, if they're not playing well, might go out in the first round. He seems to be able to scrape through matches and get to maybe quarters and semis regularly.
Ladies and gentlemen, your champion, Mark Selby.
It's so hard these days to dominate. Gone are the days with obviously the Steve Davises and the Hendrys and the Reardons in the past, where they dominate the game. It's impossible to dominate now. If it was that easy, you know, everybody would be doing it. But, you know, to keep making 70s and 80s to win frames, you can't do it all the time.
Mark Selby makes one of the best comebacks I've seen for many, many years, and he wins the World Championship for the very first time.
You have to scrape him off the table, and it means that his opponent has to have such mental stamina to stay with him, keep their concentration, because as we've seen, he can keep frames going even when he's a snooker for 20-30 minutes longer. So your mental strength gets tested.
Your champion, Mark Selby.
Yeah, he's definitely the man to beat. He's number 1 in the rankings by an absolute mile, so probably not going to be another, probably at least a year or 18 months until anyone can catch him. So, yeah, look, he's the one who's sort of raising the bar at the moment, and it's up to the rest of us to try and, you know, make up that gap.
He's got a great personality, loves everything in life. He's got a family now, so what's not to like about it? Well, he's the greatest player to come from Leicester, which I hate saying.
Well, I love the guy. The man who's standing in his way tomorrow as we get the 2017 World Championship underway is Fergal O'Brien. And I mean, OK, we now know you've carved out a little bit of your own history with the longest frame ever.
Whether I liked it or not.
You know, it's an amazing... I just love the fact that you're here, because just talk me through how close you've been, like 5 times in a row, complete heartbreak.
Absolutely, yeah. The last 5 years, as all the players have qualified, it's more nerve-wracking nearly upon sports trying to get here. And the last 5 years, I've lost the last match, including 10-9 on a pink, 10-9 on a black, and 10-9 on a respotted black. So obviously when it got to 9-all and it went so scrappy, literally the fear of making another mistake to go back to my room like a zombie haunted, watching it on telly demented for weeks, obviously overtook then, as is literally the fear of making another mistake, you know, obviously override, and obviously I took a little bit longer than I probably needed or should have. But finally I said I got through. So that, all that emotion was going through, regardless of the pressure of trying to qualify anyway. But I promise tomorrow I'll be a lot better.
Brilliant. I think that answer was about 2 hours and 3 minutes, wasn't it? Listen, best of luck to you, best of luck to you, and who knows, this is where dreams are made.
Absolutely. At least I'm here.
Hazel.
Two champions who always have plenty to say, Sean Murphy and Neil Robertson. And Sean, you two have both scaled this Crucible summit once. How difficult is it to do it again?
Yeah, I don't know. I've tried. I've been in the final a couple of times since winning in 2005. And frankly, I don't know how I did it. It's very, very difficult, and you know, it gets more and more difficult every year. I'm sure we'd both agree that those players that have won it multiple times, they're a different breed.
You have an appreciation for them, obviously, and in terms of your own performance, Neil, because you are the most successful player from outside these shores that's ever played the game, and you've got this wonderful memory here from 2010. Can you describe what it is like to get over the line in this venue?
Yeah, I mean, it's something actually, I've got to say, that Cliff must have been an absolute nightmare to play, because look at the handprint he's made on the table there. That's just 2 or 3 shots.
He's right, you know. Table fitters are going to have a few problems.
No, but yeah, it's just incredible, really. I think you know, what really topped it off was my mum left a voicemail saying that she had booked a flight to come over and for the final, and obviously something I'll never forget. And I've been flying my dad over every year since, and he's brought bad luck every year. So no, but he is coming over again, and yeah, it would be wonderful if I could have a really good run here for him.
Don't worry, we'll bar the doors. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed, and we wish you all the very best for the next 17 days. Thank you. And Colin, we have the trophy over here, which has been played for the last 90 years, was bought by Joe Davis in 1927.
Doing that introduction at the start of the programme, we were so afraid we'd trip over words, we'd get it wrong. That was nerve-wracking, lifting that trophy up and putting it here. Because, Hazel, for all the different characters and all the different personalities and all the megastars over 40 years of snooker, this is what humbles everybody.
Yep.
To get your hands in this after 17 days, and it is just magical to be this close to
Yep,
it.
the little lady on the top, who will be giving her a little peck on the cheek in 17 days' time on the 1st of May. We will soon find out, but I tell you what, we're going to add 17 days' worth of memories to the archives in our memories, aren't we? But we've added a few tonight as well. It's been a great night. And there she is. So the serious business gets underway tomorrow at 10 a.m. 31 matches, 80 sessions of snooker. The best of 705 frames worth of the snooker to get us a new champion, or perhaps a man who's already won it before. 17 day stretches before us, and you'll be able to see it all with us on BBC Sport from 10 a.m. in the morning as the defending champion Mark Selby takes on Fergal O'Brien, and that little Glasgow derby between Anthony McGill and Stephen Maguire kicks off. So I trust that you have got your supplies in for the annual snooker marathon. Not too much carb loading, mind, and make sure that you keep a nice clear head for the morning. We'll have John Parrott, Steve Davis, Stephen Hendry, Ken Doherty, Dennis Taylor, John Virgo, Willie Thorne, and all the rest of the team are limbering up backstage right now. And barring injuries, therefore, we will see you ready to go in the morning, day one of the Betfred World Championship. Here we go again. Can't wait. Good night.
Well, welcome back. A little bit of bonus Eurosport as the Crucible empties in terms of fans. After what has been a night, I don't think I'll ever forget it, Jimmy.
Listen, it's absolutely amazing. You know, for me to get my wild card, I had an indication that I might get it next week. I'm delighted. I'd like to thank World Snooker and Barry Hearn. But I think this tournament this year is going to be one of the best because of two Chinese boys. We've been talking about three Chinese boys coming through all season, and two of them are here, Bin Tao and Yu Long. So I want to see how they perform.
And before we looked at 2017 and what we have in Eurosport over the next 17 days, what a photograph this is that's being taken right now, Neil. Every champion from the last 40 years, apart from Mark Williams, who's walking this planet, in a picture together. We have all of those taking part in this year's tournament as well, and this will hang for decades on walls of these players' houses. Sitting in fireplaces, and I'm sure it'll take pride of place even at the Crucible.
It's very difficult to recreate something like this, all these guys here. And I'm thinking actually tonight about these debutants. They must think, wow, I thought it was good to be involved in this, but look at this. I'm here tonight with all the great champions. Now I really know what it is to be involved at the Crucible. And for some of these guys, they've got to not let the occasion get to them because these champions never did.
Yeah, and you know, we talk a lot about the era of the character when there was less money, Jimmy, involved in terms of what you were picking up. And from that point of view, I think they were working class heroes. You were a working class hero.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's gone to like in any sport now. You know, you don't. If you see a footballer out on a Thursday night, he's going to get milk. He's not going to have a drink. And it's a little bit like snooker players now. They all give it 100%. They're all fitness fanatics. One thing I want to say though about the debutants here. They've got to get used to that two-table situation when someone's clapping on the other side. If they've got anyone good in their corner, which Griffiths is in one of their corners, I'm sure he'd have explained to him. Apart from that, it's still a snooker table, and it doesn't get that daunting until it's the semi-finals, one-table situation.
And any young player who's going to go deep into this tournament, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter if you say, oh, I'm young and fearless, I come from a different breed, I practice 12 hours a day, I look after my body, I go to the gym. You still need to learn to play at the Crucible, mate.
Yeah, listen, you're right about fitness and all these things mean a lot, but you've got to have something else. You've got to have that instinct, you've got to have the hunger, you've got to have the desire that some of the great champions have had. You know, when you look at the likes of Steve Davis, who won this title 6 times, he had everything, and it didn't matter. He had so much hunger for the game that really, and he had money, but that never meant anything to him because he wanted to do it again. And of the current batch, Mark Selby's like that, you know. He wants it. He just wants to be out there winning. He's winning all the tournaments that it is. And the fact is, he's miles clear of the rest. He's got the appetite to succeed.
Well, they're all just walking past at the moment. I was proud of our Joe tonight. We love our Joe, don't we, Joe?
Joe Johnson. No, he's great, you know, and that year he did win it. He played phenomenal, and there was a lot of people who thought it was a one-off. He come back the next year, but Davis was too strong for him.
Yeah. So, okay, it's different for you two guys because you know them, whereas I'm doing it as someone who's watched, you know, snooker at the Crucible since I could remember being alive in this planet. I was born in '77, so, you know, it's yin and yang, isn't it? But it's interesting. It was only when I was in the room with all the legends, it was like who actually really, you know, made me feel like I was 6 and 7 years old again. And a very random thing, Cliff Thorburn, I don't know whether it's because we don't see him as much, you know what I mean, but I was a real buzz to meet Cliff Thorburn.
Yeah, lovely guy, and you know, Cliff beat Alex Higgins, and when I see Alex on the telly today, give me a little tear in my eye because, you know, he should have been here. For me, Alex Higgins made the game as well. He made it popular. He brought a bit of flamboyance to the game, but no, it's great to see all the old boys again as well.
Is there a point here? Okay, I do realise when we go down, as we call it, the 7-6-5-4 list of world titles and those 4 players, but is it as much about what's the balance between silverware and entertaining? Being a people's champion, someone who you can relate to, because they're the ones who are still now rich in love
Yeah, no, I think that's why, of all these great players, and it was wrong to single one out, but in my opinion, I still say this, that O'Sullivan is the greatest player I've seen, because it's not the titles he won, and he's won a lot of those, it's just the way he's won it. And most other players could only dream of winning in the style in which he did. And of course, Alex was the same. You know, he won 2 world titles. That's nothing to take away from Hendry, who won 7. He's probably the most clinically best player of the lot. And Davis, who was just a serial winner. But there's something about O'Sullivan and the joy he plays the game with. And it's something others can only envy.
Yeah, well, listen, we hope we don't see him in the Eurosport studio, because when he gets knocked out here, if he does, then we will see him back there. We're filtering out here after what has been an evening I'll certainly remember forever. But you know what? It's about the 17 days. It's about creating new memories. And we're going to be on air every morning, every afternoon, and every evening, of course, with Jimmy White and Neil Foulds at either side of me to bring you full comprehensive coverage of the 2017 World Snooker Championship. And I don't think there's ever been an eve like this. Good night.